Hello, if you are turning your selective studies book to page 6, this piece has a lot of technical challenges and also it's very lyrical and beautiful at the same time. So first let's look at the key signature. You'll see that we have one flat and that we start on F of this piece and we end on F. So it's very likely that we are in F major, which is the case. Next, let's look at the time signature. We're in 3/4, meaning that there are 3 quarter notes per bar. Let's look at the dynamics. So throughout this piece, there's a lot of varying dynamics right from the very beginning, and this would be something that you'll definitely need to pay attention to and practice in while you're playing through each section. And next, let's look at the tempo. The tempo is marked andante, which is also 78 beats per minute, or a quarter note equals 78. So this piece is very long, and so I recommend not being overwhelmed with the length of it, but actually take it section by section. One of the first things that you might come across that might be a little more confusing is what is called a turn. You can see that the first turn happens right here, and it's a little squiggly, and it's almost like an infinity, but it's kind of broken up just a little bit. And there's one here. And you notice this one actually has a flat above it and a sharp below it, so that'll be critical in just a little bit. I also want to point your attention to that they also given you a little key here. So if you look at 1, we'll go down to the very bottom and we'll look right here. They actually show you what that turn is going to sound like and how to play it. And I really recommend whenever you play through the number 1 right here that you just go immediately right down here and play this. And I'll practice both of these very carefully because each time you come to another turn, like on the 3rd line right here, you're going to be playing it again. Now what makes number 1 and 2 different here, 1 and 2, is that if you actually look carefully, you'll see that where there's a triplet, where there's a 3 above it, and there's only 3 notes right there. But if you look at number 2, the second example, there's 4 notes. And so the reason why these are different, if we look back up here, we look at number 1, one thing we notice right here is we start on this note, but then the next note that we're leaving from after the turn is again on F. And so that only means that we need to play 3 notes. But if you look at the second one, you'll see that we start on an A, we do the turn, but then we land on a B natural here. And so we are up 1 note from the original starting note. So that starts on F and ends on F after the turn. This starts on A, it doesn't end on A, but actually ends on B. So we actually have to add an extra note in there before we can go all the way up to the B natural. So also if you look at this turn, the natural sign above it means that you're going to flat the note above, that's in the key. We're going to play an A. If we go up 1 note, that would be normally a B flat in the key, but now it's saying to play a B natural. We're going to go back down to A after that, and the next note will be below that note, which is a G. In this case, they want us to sharp it, and that's going to make it a G sharp. So if you look right down here, you'll see that they've given us that there's a natural and then there's a sharp. So I'm going to play through each one of these, and it's going to make a little more sense, especially after you hear it. So here's number 1. So again, this is on the top line, measure 5. Again, I'm going to play that a few more times, and you can play along. Ready? Here we go. Again, ready, go. And one more time. Here we go. Next, let's look at number 2. On this one, we're going to start the turn at the same exact spot, which if you look again at your key at the very bottom, we're going to play a dotted quarter note, and then we're going to play the turn. But this time, the turn is going to be slightly faster because we have to fit 4 notes in instead of 3. This is what it's going to sound like here. And again, I'll play this 3 more times so you can follow along. So 1, ready, go. And again, ready, go. And then one more time, ready, go. This time I'm going to start right on measure 5 and play 6 along with it. Here we go. This time I'll set a metronome, setting it at 60 for right now. So that might make it a little easier to follow along. 1, ready, go. And 2 more times, ready, go. And this time, think about that crescendo right at the very end. Here we go. Another important thing throughout this is going to be the breath marks. And I'll show you my music again here in just a little bit so you can mark those in. Now let's continue to look at the turns throughout this piece. So if you look at line 3, you'll see that again we're starting on an F, but this time we're going up to a G, so it's not going to be quite like number 1, but it's going to be like the number 2 example at the bottom of the page. Let's start on line 3 so we can play through this turn a few times. If you want to follow along, you can do that. I'm going to start the pickup into the second measure of line 3, starting on the D. So 1, 2. Let's do it 2 more times. 1, 2. Again, 1, 2. And one last time, ready? Go. All right, let's keep going. The next turn will be on, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th line down, 3 measures in. So this is starting on the G. This is also measure 33 if you measure all your numbers. So right here, you'll see that the turn, so right here, you'll see that there's a sharp sign, going the wrong way here, below it, saying that we're going to play an F sharp, but we're going to keep the A right there. So we're going to play G, A, G, F sharp, and back to G. Next, we're going to play C. And then we're going to go C, D, C, B natural because it's saying that we need to have that B natural. So here's the first one. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Line 6, second measure on the G. And I'll play the pickup notes. So 1, 2. Just like that. So very similar to the number 1 on the very first line. Next, let's look at the C. Now, to play this trill, or this turn, sorry, not trill, to do this quickly, instead of going from C, D, C, B natural, what you can do instead, so C, and there's this little key right here. So in your right hand, it's right below that right there. And so this is going to be your D trill key. So you're going to play a C, and when you push that down, that's going to give you D. Now, there's also another way to do it up here, but this is the one you'll use in this case. So we're going to go C, D, C, B natural, C. So we're just going to lift up that first finger here. So that will sound like this, slowly. And again. And I'm going to play that at tempo now. Ready, go. And 2 more times so you can play with me. Ready, go. Ready, and go. All right, good. And so every time you have one of these turns, it's going to be the same exact thing. I'll quickly do the last two that I see here. So if you go to line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you'll see that right there we're on a G. So we have a G turn and then we go to a C turn. That C turn is virtually identical to the one just 2 lines above that we just finished off on. So again, making sure to play that D trill key right there. I'm going to start at the very beginning of that line. I'm going to play right through it. So here we go. And again, so 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Now, if you notice, it almost sounds slightly off. And that's because whenever you're playing G, this time they're not saying to sharp the F sharp like before. They're just showing to play a natural. And let me show you what mine looks like in case yours varies. I have an old edition of this book. And you'll see that there's a G, so we're going to go up to A, G, F natural, back to G. And I'm showing you this just so you can see that if yours, for some reason, has a sharp showing right below that, then you can add an F sharp. But in this case, if it looks exactly like this, keep it as an F natural. And then here's again, you can see I wrote right above it, D trill. Next, I want to talk about breath marks. And so I'm going to show you this again. And I'm going to point out where all the breath marks are, and I encourage you to also put them into your music. The breath marks will allow you just to make sure that you're taking breaths here, and it also gives you a good place to know where possibly a phrase ends. So here's the music. If you need to pause it, go ahead and do that. All right, so the first breath mark you can see is right here, and so it is actually on a rest, but these are just reminding you, make sure you take a good breath. And then, so there's another one here, and then I have another one here. I also have the measure numbers in there, so that might be kind of hard to see where all of them are. But again, just keep going through, marking those into your music too. There's going to be some important ones, so make sure you get this one here. So this breath mark, what you're going to do is you're actually going to breathe where this 8th note is. So you're actually going to remove that and just take a breath there. And this is going to be really important. And so this one here, this breath mark, be able to do that, you're going to have to cut this one just slightly short. Continue to kind of go through. Make sure you can see everything. So something I want to also point out are some of the dynamics that might cause problems with some of your responsive notes. So look at the very first line on measure, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll see that there is a low C here. And whenever you play this low C, now it's showing that you need to play it at a piano. This might be pretty challenging, especially for many instruments. So make sure that you have cushion with your lips, you're playing closer on the tip of the reed, and that you're giving it enough air to be able to get that note to respond. If you actually have to play it at a mezzo piano, or even possibly a mezzo forte just to get the note out, you might need to do that. But again, only do that if you know your reed and your embouchure and everything else isn't working. One thing I want to mention is if you look at line 3, measure 1, 2, 3, 4 in, also known as measure 16, you'll see that there are slurs connected to staccato notes. The way you play these, you do still tongue them, but they're slightly detached, but not as detached as much as normal staccato notes are. So let me give an example of that here. I'm going to start the measure right before that on the F sharp. And again, ready? Next, let's look at a line further towards the end. So this is measure 46. We're also on line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So line or system 9. And it's right here. And I want to point this out because I have written in here breath marks. So here we go, right here. So it's 3 lines up from the bottom. So line 1, 2, 3 up from the bottom. So it starts on a G. And I have written here out, and then I have a little further written in. So what this means is that you are going to breathe out here, and you're going to breathe in here, right there. Go ahead and whenever you do this, you'll have to cut off this note right here, and that's where you're going to be breathing. This will also help you count here too. So I'm going to play through that so you can hear what that sounds like. All right, and... So just like that. So you'll hear that I kind of over-exaggerated when I breathed out and breathed back in. So whenever you play oboe, you might notice that sometimes you feel like you're just holding your breath. And that is because oboe doesn't really allow a whole lot of air to go through here. And so what happens is it almost feels like you're holding your breath because you're not getting enough air out whenever you breathe in. So sometimes we have to put those out and in marks to help us breathe better. On the same exact line, if you look at the very end, you'll see that there's something that says RALL dot. That means rallentando. And that means a sudden slow down. And so this is measure 48, again, line 9 at the very last measure, or 3 lines up from the bottom last measure. And I'll play that for you right on the beginning of the measure. So that's starting on an F natural. This time I'm going to start at measure 46, or right at the beginning of that line. And this time, if you want to follow along, you can. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. And so that gives you a look at whenever you are breathing out, breathing in, getting to that rallentando, slowing down, and then you're holding at the fermata. And so you just want to hold the fermata just long enough that it just pauses, make sure to get a good resonant tone, and then come off of it. And treat the note right after the fermata more as a pickup note into the next measure. And so play the fermata, and then you're going to, which is on E, and then you're going to go D, C. And as soon as you hit that C, you'll be right back into the original tempo, or also A tempo. Whenever you're going through this piece, there's going to be a lot of articulations. Just make sure to practice it slowly and that you are following all of the articulations, staccato markings, and along with the dynamic markings. And then whenever you get those down really well, continue to speed it up. All right, I think that's all for this. Thank you very much.